What's your strategy for handling a time of change where you didn't ask for it, where it feels like it's coming from the outside, or maybe it's something that's exploding out from inside of you, but it's coming in the form of discomfort, limbo, and you can't seem to get anything moving. It's really common. And then the solution, or the one that I've found has worked amazingly for me and for people that have worked with me, is not always what we think it should be. It's, in fact, can be the opposite. My name's Cassandra Punita James, and this is one of my Courageous Living vlogs for you. And this takes a lot of courage when these times happen for us. And interestingly, they happen particularly strongly at certain ages, and I'll share those later, because maybe you're in the middle of one of them and it might help explain what's going on for you. So the symptoms can be, you might be feeling in limbo. It's just like there's a disquiet, there's an unease, there's a discomfort inside you. Everything doesn't feel quite right. Maybe things just aren't working out well on the outside for you. Maybe you've been trying all these new things and it's not going anywhere, and you just know something needs to change, but you can't, or your action, it doesn't seem to make any difference. So that's ways that some people do it. It's like, okay, let's get super busy and we'll do what we've been doing before, and we'll just keep going with it, and we'll see if I can move my way out of it. And for some things, yes, that's amazing. But there is a quality about this limbo time that doesn't always shift it. Another way one of my clients was telling me just the other day that she's been trying to handle this is just put on a brave face and her smart work clothes and go forth and try and just fake it till you make it. Try and just go out there and, right, okay, I'm going to live how this should be. I'm going to put across that. And yet it doesn't, the underneath, the turmoil can still be there. So there's many ways this can come up. But what I've found in my life exploring this, which I have been for a long time, and especially when I was young and going through some of these key phases, is that you have to do the opposite. So when these times come, our natural inclination, is to move, is to change, or is to do the same thing, but like really put lots of energy into it. And in fact, what we need to do is do less. It's about pausing. It's about allowing ourselves just to be in that limbo space and be utterly uncomfortable. And maybe emotions come up. Maybe thoughts come up, maybe writing stuff or painting or going running or sharing or crying. It doesn't really matter, but sometimes you just need to allow expression, and sometimes it's just that feeling of disquiet and you can't shift it, and something's like there's a pressure cooker building but you can't let off the steam. So when you pause, this is the opposite. When you pause and you allow yourself just to sit in that space and be with it, yeah, it's uncomfortable. And yes, some of the phases that I'm going to go through of the ages, they can really last for years, but they're not constantly all the time. That's the good thing. There will be waves of it. And then there'll be a shift and you go, oh, phew. And you go, okay, and the next one's coming. And other times it's quite short. It doesn't necessarily last very long. And now with my experience, what I've found is that the more you just sit, really give it space and time, it can shift faster and faster. So it's like when the caterpillar turns into the butterfly, it has to stop. It weaves a cocoon and it puts itself in the middle. It builds it around itself. It creates a quiet space, and it doesn't know what's going to come out the other side. Well, we don't think so. We don't really know the minds of caterpillars and butterflies, but we know it knows that that's what it has to do. It goes into there. It builds a chrysalis around it, and it sits and it waits. And in that space, and in that pause, an incredible transformation happens. It goes from being a soft-skinned, crawling, multi-legged insect, a worm basically, turned into a harder shell, winged creature that goes from the ground, from leaves, from bushes, to the air. It has a whole second life. And that whole life is so radically different from what it had before. And this is the potential that can happen for each of us when we're going through times like this, the really big times. So I'll share the ages with you. There's core ages, because I'm an astrologer, as well as working with Healing the Deep with Acuenergetics, and with the memberships that I run, Courageous Living, A Courageous Way, and Pocket Buddha, because all of these things are about exploring and understanding and clearing the path, the obstruction in our physical body, in our emotional body, in our mindset, in our what we're doing in the world around us, so that new potential is possible. And so when you make yourself space and you sit in it, and you don't know how long you're going to sit in it, the thing that can come, you, the transformed you that come out the other side and will probably come out in stages, can just be breathtaking, can be beyond anything that you were visioning before. The ages are 28, 29. This is a big one. And it's one where we can either take on more responsibility, or we can take on less responsibility if we've been very serious and responsible before. For me, I was playing before that age, traveling, living in ashrams, studying meditation, hanging out with friends, having a wonderful time, sailing the ocean, living in Hawaii. And I was like, it's time to start a business, which I did with my partner at the time. So some people business, some people have a baby, some people move countries, and some people let it all go and move out into the world and do something different. They give up their roots, they give up their structure. So that's a big age. And the next big age, and there's lots of personal ones that happen in between. These are just the ones that are common for everybody. 37, 38, around 38 to 45. And this is like the biggest and longest and strongest one. And there's others. 57, 58, it's like it keeps on going. But the 38 to 45, most of the people I'm seeing are in this age group, and then some beyond. But in this age, it's like, I remember the first 2 years were just the toughest, and I had to let lots of things go. And this is what can happen in these times of where we have these times of discontent. We often have to let things go. We have to pare down. We have to come down to the simplest and just allow, if something is just not working anymore, relationship, work, place where we're living, the way we are, what we're doing in ourselves and for ourselves in our lives, we sometimes just have to let it go and allow things to move and then see what comes. Remember that you can't vision where you're going from where you are now if it's radically different. Because if it's radically different, it's outside of your understanding. It's almost, we can have a vision, we go, wow, that's what we'd like to make happen in our lives, in our work. But when we get closer, when we're in the time, in fact, the potential is so much huger than we can ever envision. So this time of the 38 to 45, this is huge. Your whole life will pivot in this time. Your life, your work, so many aspects of it. And you'll come at the end rebuilding, offering things, including everything you've learnt before, in such a new way. But there will be big times of limbo, especially at the beginning. And when you know it's coming, it's just like, okay, that's happening. You can go with it. Like, we've all had lockdown now. Everyone's had a lockdown experience pretty well in the world. Think of lockdowns like these things in a small motion, but they're on the outside versus the inside. And the inside is definitely the tougher path, but it's the one with more potential. It's the one where more can come for you. It's the one where the real big gifts and shifts can come. So when you sit in that space, it's like behind me, this is the little bay. But if you sit in that space and you hold, it's like the door opens, like the chrysalis opens, and like you can see the bay opening here behind me. I'm in Australia, out to the sea. This is what happens for us. When we sit in that space, we allow the transformation in the pause and in an unknowing, and then doors open, and then things become possible. They arrive, they're just gifted to us. They happen inside of us, outside of us. It all shifts because we've just allowed the space for us to shift inside, us to be different. And then the new is possible. So if you're going through a time like this, just give yourself grace that you don't have to know what's going on. It's okay to sit in limbo, and you might need to take more time on your own. You might even need to live on your own for a while, as I was suggesting to a good friend of mine, because he had this longing. And it's like, then, especially if it's an uncomfortable thing to do, to live on your own, then it's the perfect timing. Sometimes it's the time to go, what is the most uncomfortable thing for me to do, to turn in and see that and give it space, because then that fear of, oh my God, that might happen one time, it's gone. So you give ourselves space, and we give ourselves, maybe we live on our own for a while, maybe we're single for a while, maybe we're traveling, maybe we work for ourselves or work for somebody else. It doesn't really matter. Maybe just that you go and spend time on the beach, like the beach beyond this headland. It's just give yourself what your heart calls for. So I want to give you a tool of how to do this easily. You close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and you drop inside, and you sit in that uncomfortable limbo pause space inside you, and you ask it, what is it looking for? This is probably the wisdom of your heart trying to speak to you. What's right today? It doesn't have to be forever. It just, in this moment, what is that voice inside you calling out? Been trying to knock on the door and talk to you. Listen to it, and you'll know when you're connected to it, because the answer will come clear and strong. And it's just like this. And you go, wow, where did that come from? It came from your deep within you of what is right for you to do at this time. And tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, you can check in again. It might change. But if you listen to it and you take action, you work out how you can include living that in your life, then the disquiet and the limbo and the uneasiness and the uncertainty, it will start to let go. Because sometimes it gets dragged on longer because we don't want to make the right step, the right step for us, the one that our inner self is calling for us to take. We're like, no, that's not the one I want to do. And that's why we can feel so uncomfortable. So sit, listen into it, follow its advice in some way in your life. You don't have to throw everything out, but you do need to listen in and then just see how, big step, small step, you could do it. Maybe you just have a weekend for yourself. Maybe you take up something and you do a little part-time creative work that's your own while you work for someone else. It doesn't really matter. Maybe you reconnect with people you need to connect with. It's just going, listening and taking action. So if you've been feeling that you're not sure, you're in one of these limbo spaces and you can't see your way out of it, then I offer sessions for this. We can do it virtually. So although I'm in Australia and I will be returning to UK and EU, I'm hoping in the next month or so, things are getting a bit closer. In the meantime, summer is returning here. If you would like my help, wherever you are in the world, reply to this email, comment me below if it's social media, just message me, say hello, I can send you the details, and let's spend an hour together and see the shift that we can make to help you move forward with your life, with your business, with your relationship, whatever it is that's feeling like it's in limbo, like you're stuck in treacle. You can take a deep breath and you can move out, and it can shift and doors can open for you like the gateway through to the sea here. Otherwise, you don't need help now, that's brilliant. Take what I've shared here and share below how this is what you've been going through. I'd love to hear it, and happy to give you feedback here as well. Ciao.